Hello, welcome to West Coast Bias. I'm Andrew Nemec, joined as always by Jason Suke and Nemec. Suke, how you doing, man?
What's going on, brother?
I got to admit, this weekend of football was some of the least inspiring, and I know that seems like kind of homerism. If Oregon doesn't play or if Washington doesn't play, we go, oh, there's not that exciting. But it really wasn't. It really wasn't all that exciting to me. This was the first weekend in a long time that I kind of tuned out some of the noise and just kind of spent some time with my family. I watched some games. I went back and watched, but I watched the least live football I've watched of any week all year.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it had a lot of juice because, some of the games even ended up being close, right? We had Miami going down in overtime. Vanderbilt made a scramble to try to make that a game against Texas. We have Florida, Georgia came down to a fourth down play there with a chance to ice it. So there were some close games, but I'm with you. None of those games really felt like, even the Miami game, which may have been an elimination game for Miami, didn't necessarily feel like it had a ton of juice. I don't know why that is, because we say this all the time. Like, you look at the schedule and say, hey, there's not a lot there, and then it ends up being a great weekend of football. But I'm so with you. And maybe I don't know, maybe there was a World Series hangover, or I don't know what it was, but it did not feel, I'm with you, that this week had. Excuse me, there was my energy drink comes up in the morning. I just, I'm with you. It just didn't feel, for whatever reason. Nebraska USC was one that I was excited about, and that ended up being a close game. That ended up being a 4-point game. But again, watching it, just didn't feel like I was watching great football. And maybe that's what it is. At the end of the day, none of those teams that I watched this weekend felt like I was watching a particularly great football team, and maybe there just isn't great football teams this year. With maybe Ohio State's an exception, but it was a weird weekend.
Well, we'll get into kind of a college football roundtable today. We'll touch on Oregon, we'll touch on Washington, we'll touch on Oregon State. But I did want to start nationally, and I do think,
Beavs, by the way, storming the field. There you go. There's a highlight for you.
I do think this season, to a large degree, has been worst case scenario for the Big 12 and ACC. If you're trying to argue to me, at me, because I'm barely listening if this is your argument, that the Big 12 and the ACC belong in the Power Four right there with the Big 10 and the SEC, you have to have multiple teams that have a shot at making a run in the college football playoff. And I think you can point to 3 or 4 different teams in the SEC and say they've got a real shot to go at least to the semis or the championship game. Maybe not win it, but you can draw a roadmap to multiple teams. Same with the Big 10. You look at the Big 12, and it's just kind of the battle of mediocrity. Mm-hmm. Like, whoever wins that conference, do we have any confidence that they would have a winning record in the SEC if they had a tough schedule? You look at the ACC, their big brands, Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech was ranked, but again, that's kind of a rise of the cream of the crop because of mediocrity. They lose this week. And if you're trying to make an argument that we need to stay together because we're a power conference entity, it sure feels like, if I'm doing kind of the side meetings, if I'm Miami, if I'm Clemson, if I'm still invited, if I'm Florida State, I'm like, hey, it might be worth it to get the bag to go to the SEC or Big 10 because this conference is dragging us down.
Well, but at the same time, can we make the argument that they're not holding up their end of the deal either? Like,
but you can get out before your brand takes a hit, is what I'm kind of getting at.
You can get out. That's an interesting conversation because it's a chicken and the egg thing, right? Which comes first? Do you want your program to fall off and then be desperate to scramble, or do you land in bigger waters and then fall off? I would make the argument, Oklahoma this year, if you want to say Oklahoma's had a bounce back, but did they have a bounce back at the end of the year? I think Oklahoma ends up with 3 or 4 losses. Mm-hmm. And I honestly think Oklahoma will just be a 3 or 4 loss team. I don't think Oklahoma in this current climate is a real player in the SEC. And I understand that you didn't want to be in the Big 12 because you didn't, the Big 12 does feel like a bit of an anchorless program right now. And maybe you feel that down the road, the Big 12 and the ACC go the way of the Pac-12. Because I'll tell you what, if the Pac-12 can die, the ACC can die, and certainly the Big 12 can die. I mean, that is a much bigger and more prestigious conference than either one of those. But at the same time, if you're swimming in the SEC waters, and you mentioned it, if any of those Big 12 teams, and look, I went to BYU, but I'm not a homer BYU is undefeated, 8-0. If BYU was playing Alabama's schedule, we got 3 losses. God, we may have 4. And I've seen Texas Tech play. Texas Tech's a good team. I think Cincinnati's fine. Utah's okay. But let's not, let's not, sugarcoat this. Those are 3 or 4 lost teams. But I guess my point is, so is Oklahoma. So if you're one of those schools,
sure, but wouldn't you rather be Oklahoma and get the bag?
Sure,
than be, is there BYU or Texas Tech? I mean,
but I would make the case if you're Oklahoma, and look, this is just merely devil's advocate. If you're Oklahoma, and I told you that you could win the Big 12 every year, be the dominant program in the every year, play in the college football playoff every single year, and then if something were to happen and you fall apart, there would be a landing spot for you, right? Like someone would take Oklahoma. Now, if you're one of the lesser brands like UCLA, you got to get out when the getting's good because it's not going to be there for you when it's over. USC, could have an argument to be made for this, that the USC may end up drowning in the Big Ten. They certainly don't feel like they were prepared to go play in the Big Ten. And that's not the SEC. I think the Big Ten is way more manageable than the SEC is. So you have this kind of weird thing where if you do want to go play with the big boys, yes, you do get the bag. And maybe at this point, that's all it is you have the prestige of it and you've got the money. But you're also playing a entirely different game because I'm with you. There is not a team in the SEC or in the ACC, and there's not a team in the Big 12 that would sniff the top 5 in the SEC and probably not sniff the top 4 in the Big 10. And so, is there a place for those? Or is this just canary in the coal mine thing where the Pac-12 died, the Big 12 and the ACC go on for a few, but it's only a matter of time before these conferences just end up swallowing them. And then we end up in more of a situation like where you have the NFL where it's a true playoff that you don't need to win 2 or you don't need to only lose 2 games every year. Because essentially what you have here is the NFL model, you can lose 5 games. And as long as you get into the postseason, you've got a crack at it. In college football, we've never had that.
Right.
And you do have a little bit of that now where we talk about it where it's like, oh, as long as you have 2 losses, you're going to be okay. If you're in the SEC or the Big 10. If you're in the Big 12 or the ACC, that's a little bit different. 2 losses, Miami may have just given themselves the heave unless they go on and win their conference. So, is this just we're eventually heading to the point where the Big 10 and the SEC gobble up everything? You end up where it doesn't matter, how many losses you have. It ends up where you matter in the conference. And then we kind of go from there because it does feel right there that there is a giant separation right now in the Big 12 and the ACC. And you can blame those conferences, but those teams aren't holding up their end of the water. If we had SMU doing what they did last year, if we had Miami doing it, if we had Clemson doing it, if we had Florida State, if they were living up to what we thought they were, we wouldn't be talking about the SEC that way. Now, the Big 12 is different because the Big 12 is overachieving. The Big 12 has teams that are good, but they just don't have marquee teams.
They have a bunch of B plus teams.
If that, they got a bunch of B teams.
Yeah.
I don't know who your anchor program is. Like they
don't recruit like an anchor program. They don't. No. I don't know if there's a program in that conference that recruits at a top 25 level.
No, they don't. There's no way. If
makes you kind of a group of 5. I mean, it does. It kind of makes you a mid-tier. Their days are numbered, man. And here's the thing. And you touched on it. You were like, I feel, some of these brands. Which would you rather be? It's not as simple as that. Because all you have to do is have one semi-marquee program. Like take North Carolina right now, right? Yeah. If you wanted to, if think about it, if you're the SEC or you're the Big 10 and you really want to put a nail in the coffin of the ACC and then start the funnel, because that's all it takes. You got to get one, right? You got to get Colorado to feel froggy and the Pac-12 starts to dissolve, right? Go to North Carolina. They have a basketball brand. They're not a bad football brand. They are right now, but they just had Bill Belichick. You could pretty easily talk them into, hey, you'll get a seat at the table. You don't really want North Carolina, right? That's not the end game. The end game is we'll get Clemson, Florida State, whoever we want out of the ACC and break this thing up. That's the end game. So it's not as simple as like, which way's the right way and which would you rather be? It's will every single school answer it? It's better to be in the ACC. One of those schools is going to be like, can we get out of this? Because we can get a bag over there, and we're already kind of not real relevant right now here. But if we can get a bag to be kind of semi-relevant there, Let's just do that, and we'll get more money, and we can buy some transfers, and then we can potentially compete. That's what scares me, and that's why I say this is a nightmare scenario for the ACC and the Big 12, because you have so many different schools that have been pushed this year.
Yeah.
Like if you just had Clemson at number 2 and Florida State was number 8, they're not feeling any type of way about I need to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're struggling, if the conference as a whole doesn't have a marquee program, if these are the topics people are talking about, all you have to get is one president or one AD to push the red button, and the whole thing implodes. Because once one school leaves, then it's every man for himself. We saw this in the Pac-12. Yep. Colorado felt froggy. Then right away, Arizona State, and Utah were like, we have to get a seat at the table. We got to go somewhere or we're going to get left. So they went to the Big 12, into the Pac-12. And all it came from was Colorado, the brand that was shaky, that had some juice, but not real staying power, as we've seen, was like, is this what's best for us right now? Because we could push the red button. We could right now. We could. And we could blame USC and UCLA, and we're good. And that's what happened. And I think it's inevitable that will happen in the Big 12 and the ACC. And that's why I believe this is absolute worst case scenario is the Big 12 has a bunch of teams that are playing well enough to feel good about themselves, but not well enough to feel like the conference is holding them up. And the ACC has a whole bunch of teams that are about to hit the panic button because they look a little irrelevant. Can I sell you on Virginia as the marquee team? Can I sell you on Georgia Tech? No? Okay. Well, then maybe it's time to get out while the getting's good.
Well, then be careful what you wish for.
Oh, totally. Look at Cal. Look at UCLA. I mean,
you can become irrelevant real fast. I'll tell you right now. Again, I'll just speak to my little world. Being a BYU alum, and I played at BYU. If BYU goes, I would rather stay in the Big 12 and not have the resources. Okay, I get it. BYU is not going to have the resources that LSU has. They're not going to have the resources that Oregon has. Here's the thing. Even if you end up in the Big 10, you're not going to have those resources. Okay, so you give me an extra $40 or $50 million a year. I'm still not buying players at that rate. I still don't. I'm not going to have the infrastructure to ever be Ohio State. And I think maybe that's what it is Oregon State has a little bit of this. I'm not trying to crap on Oregon State in any way, but I always hear from Oregon State fan that like, if just happened, if we just did this, and this, it ain't. It's not. Like, you can certainly achieve great things at Oregon State, but you are not winning national championships. It's not going to happen. You are not going to compete at the same level as Ohio State and Alabama. It will never happen. There's too many built-in disadvantages. I mean, once every 30 years, you may have a program that rises up from the ashes. Oregon did that. And Oregon did it simply because they had a guy that was worth $36 billion and by the way, runs the greatest marketing team and brand that we've ever seen.
He's the perfect recipe to overcome their issues.
T.B. Pickens tried to do this at Oklahoma State. Didn't work. Right?
Texas A&M has thrown a ton of money.
Texas A&M has probably spent more money in the last 15 years than any school, and it hasn't worked. Although now, again, they're playing well, but
and they've got a Heisman Trophy. I mean, they didn't get to the top of the mountain, but they became relevant.
It's really, really hard to do.
Yeah.
So to me, as a BYU guy, if you put us in the SEC, we're irrelevant. Mm-hmm. We're Vanderbilt most years, and I know Vanderbilt's having a moment, but they won't stay there. By the way, they look completely outclassed by a very average Texas team, and because from a player standpoint, they are. And Vanderbilt can have a moment, and Vanderbilt gets a lot of money. Vanderbilt will not be Alabama. So to me, taking a couple extra 10, 20, 30, 40 million, whatever, to go to the SEC and then just become some bottom team that gets the crap kicked out of me every week. No, thanks. I do think there is a place in the world of college football for second tier teams. And we saw Arizona State last year, who was the definition of a second tier team. They had a really good quarterback and they had a special running back and they played hard and they believed in each other. And it was a good year, and it wasn't a great team by any stretch of the imagination, but they got into the playoffs and they made some noise and they pushed Texas, right? Quinn Ewers had to make a great play at the end of that game. Otherwise, Arizona State, now again, they cannot win a national title. But in the field of basketball, right? The Valpos don't win a national championship, but you can still end up making a Sweet 16. You can still make a Final Four. George Mason. And I just think
Butler back-to-back title games had a half-court heave to win.
Half-court heave, right? And so I think you can. And I know it's harder in football because, you have to have, 80 guys as opposed to having 12. But I do think there's a place. I think every one of these fan bases and all these administrators, they get caught up into wanting to be them. But you're not going to be. You're just not. And so I hope that somewhere there is a place where we say, yes, even if the Big Ten and the SEC end up gobbling up some other teams, and it's like, hey, we're the king poobahs. I still think there's a place for those other schools to say, okay, well, we don't have those resources. We don't have those fan bases. We don't have 100,000 people in our seats. Maybe we can't pay, our starting quarterback $2 million. We can pay him $750,000. And there's room for that. I do believe there's room, and I think it's better. I think it's better in college football when we have that. I think it's better when we see some Davids try to go up against a Goliath. I think that's kind of the nature of sports. That's, it happens in Major League Baseball, where the Minnesota Twins, get a chance to go compete against someone. And, the Blue Jays aren't a great example of this because they actually
the World Series tried to spin it this way. And it kind of had some elements of that. It was Canada and more of the plucky team.
But Toronto spends a bunch of money, but we do see it, right? Oklahoma City in the NBA, right? They can't get free agents and built that team up through the draft. I mean, there are ways to do it. It doesn't always have to be the guy that just has the most. Now in college football, where you get to pick your players, yes, but that's always been college football. Ohio State and Alabama and programs like that are always going to have a major advantage. But this idea that if an ACC school or a Big 12 school just got to the Big 10, everything would be fine. No, it won't.
Sure.
Right. It's just that's a fallacy. It's a lie. And I just think, buyer beware. Yes, you do get some money, but at some point, does the soul of this thing, is that where we're at? Is it just, it merely matters to how much money you can get out of your TV deal? And that's all it is.
The NCAA has taken their hands off the wheel, and that's who should be the voice of reason for just like the sanctity, if there is any, of college athletics, right? That should be their role. Yeah. Instead, you have TV rights deals, right? And you've got these big TV companies that want all the best brands to compete against each other week in, week out. And you've got these ADs and these school presidents who are incentivized to take more money. It's worth it for them to get 90. Like Oregon's going to average out at the end of their deal with the Big Ten, like something like 90 million per on their TV deal. Yeah. Oregon State, they're talking about 6 to 12, I think, or 8 to 12.
Something like
That's a massive difference in choosing to go versus stay. That's a huge amount of money, especially in an era where potentially you see the pitfalls of, we might have to pay health insurance on all these players. We might have to give them benefits. We might have to, we need to come up with this money. So I think that's what's driving this, is you don't have anyone right now that's the voice. And I've been saying this for about 5 years. It's going to be that the Big Ten is essentially the NFC. The SEC is eventually going to be the AFC. And if you're saying, hey, regionality in college football is gone, it's going to come back because they're going to continue eating teams until they have enough West teams that you get a Big Ten West that's Oregon, USC, UCLA, Washington. Maybe they'll grab a Utah through the fold, and suddenly you have a Pac-8 again of the 8 biggest brands from the Pac-12, and then they play 2 or 3 crossover games with the Big Ten East, that's your Penn States and Michigans, and that's who you play. That's what's going to happen. I've been saying that forever, even before the Pac-12 dissolved. It seems even more likely now. I'm not arguing that that's a good thing, by the way. I'm not here saying like this is great. I'm just saying the writing's on the wall, because this has not been a good year for the ACC or the Big 12. This is not what you'd want. No. This is not it. And all you need is one team to get in over their skis and go, we better get out now, because if we don't, our brand is falling, or we're on the rise. Let's capitalize now.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, I think sometimes it's a cop out to say that the ACC sucks, and
it has for a while.
And it has for a while. But the fact that the ACC sucks is not the reason why Clemson sucks, and it's not the reason why Mike Norvell sucks. And so, so I think it's a convenient cop out for some of those teams and those schools to say, well, I mean, if we just look at what we're doing, no. Florida State, you suck. You suck. You hired the wrong coach, and you gave him a bunch of money, because a couple years ago when you were undefeated, you weren't shitting all over the ACC.
But what if you just had an honest conversation? What if you're Clemson and you have an honest conversation? Yep. And it's not we're the best. It's not like some sort of like, hey, the ACC failed us. It's our brand's hot right now. Yep. We're in South Carolina.
Yep.
Dabo probably needs to move on soon. What if we can't recapture this? Let's go look at our history. Okay, we have not been a premier program in college football for 50 years. No. But we are right now-ish. Yep. We're just having a down year. What if we can capitalize on that now to get a seat at the table? because if this thing fractures and it's the Big Ten SEC championship against everyone else, and we're on the outside looking in,
I mean,
the
you're essentially
difference
saying
might be $60 million a year.
That's what Florida State did, and to the tune of they needed to write a check for $200 and something million and possibly not have their games on TV. And and the courts would have to decide that. But the ACC is like, no, dude, you signed this at the time, and oh no, it's the consequences of my own actions. And then Florida State was throwing a hissy fit for years and years.
Yes.
About this, and the ACC was like, I don't know what to tell you, man. You signed this. You want out. Here's the money. And by the way, the deal was so bad for Florida State that not only were they going to have to pay, all that money to get out, their games couldn't be on TV. Their TV rights would have stayed with the ACC.
Right.
And so Florida State can bitch and moan all they want, but they signed that deal. And so if you want out of it, figure out a way to pay you out of it if it's that bad. So it's just it is a weird time, and I don't disagree with really anything you're saying. It's just we don't know what this is going to look like. We are in an unprecedented time here in college football, and I know people don't like it, and I know people are complaining a lot, but the TV numbers are bigger than ever. The money's bigger than ever, so people are watching it. It's just that some people are pissed about it because behind the scenes stuff is kind of messy, and it feels like a lot of teams are going to get left behind. And it's different when it's something that you love and all of a sudden things are changing and we don't know where it's changing to. I have no idea. Like if you asked me where this is in 5 years, man, if you would have gone back 5 years and told me that the Pac-12 is dead and this is where we're at, I would have laughed at you. They say the Big 12 is around and the Pac-12 isn't. It's just, and so as this goes on and we see how this evolves and changes, eventually, do the players have to unionize? Is this thing going to be collectively bargained? Does Congress step in? And, there's the SAFE and the SCORE Act out there trying to provide some antitrust stuff. Do coaches, we've talked about coaches' salaries trying to get rolled back and guarantees. Does someone actually have the balls to do that? We're trying to streamline the transfer portal. It feels like, to me, the NCAA botched this so bad and had such a crooked, unfair model for years and years and years and fought it. And then eventually the dam just burst, and now they just have this wave of water, and now we're trying to sort through the wreckage. And I do think we'll sort through it. I really do. I don't know if it'll be in 3 years. I don't know if it'll be in 5 years. I think 6, 7, 8 years down the road, I do think this eventually is going to settle, and you'll come up with some new form of this. And I think the passion and the brands are going to survive. Look, this is the second most popular sport in America. I mean, the World Series just ended. I'm a huge baseball guy, but that World Series number, I haven't looked at it, but I'm guessing Game 7 probably got somewhere in the 12, 13, 14 million range, which was a huge number for baseball.
Yep.
The college football playoff will get 22.
Right.
So, I mean, this is the second most popular sport. It's not even close.
Right.
So, the idea that this thing is going to go away or that somehow it's going to kill itself, it's not. It's just like the NFL. The NFL is unkillable. The kneeling Trump stuff didn't do it. The concussion stuff didn't do it. Nothing. It's not even an 800-pound gorilla. It's freaking Godzilla. And college football may not be Godzilla, but it's Mothra, and it stomps the hell out of everything not named Godzilla. So this will be okay. It's just when this settles, I think there's going to be a lot more fan bases that end up kind of like Oregon State, Washington State saying, well, what the hell, man? This isn't what I wanted.
It's going to go the way of cable.
Yeah.
Where we went, cable, this doesn't make sense. We can have streaming services. You can pick what you want and pay what you want. And da-da-da-da-da. And then it fractured, and everyone saw an avenue to their own streaming service. And now we go, I have to have how many different streaming services to watch the complete season of the Yankees? 7? What? Yeah. What in the world? What would be great? Cable. And then that's where we are with college football. We are fracturing in a way where people are paying for streams right now by being in their different conferences. It's going to fracture too much. People are going to go, I miss the days of cable. I miss the ways of traditional college football.
I just want every fan base to be honest with themselves. If you're not named Ohio State, if you're not named Alabama, if you're not named Georgia, so, from Cal to Stanford to UCLA to BYU, to Missouri, right? Any of those programs, right? North Carolina State.
You're talking about traditional, anywhere from, I usually finish 15 on down.
Yeah. Let's just be honest. Were you winning a national championship 10 years ago? No. Were you going to win a national championship 10 years from now? No. Are you going to win one this year? No. And so just I wish we could have some honest conversations about that and just admit it that I think it's okay to want to land someplace safe and secure that isn't necessarily at the highest rung. College sports has always had this fallacy of, only the national championship matters. And it doesn't. It's the one sport. And I think it's great. College basketball, I'll go back to that. College basketball is the best example of it's not just one champion. Right, we have different expectations, and that's why I think kind of bowl games are kind of cool. Look, I played for, I had a couple teams that when I played for, we got into the top. I think one year we got to like 8th in the country, and I think one year we got to 12th, and then 2 other years we were irrelevant, right? But I promise you, those 2 years we were not the 12th best team in the country. We just weren't, and we weren't going to get a shot at that. But going to a bowl game for a lot of those teams, it's a reward. It's cool. It's like, hey, and you get a chance to get a degree. You can maybe go on and get a chance to play in the NFL, whether it's a cup of coffee, and then you're out in 2 years. Or I have teammates that went on and played for years and years and made millions of dollars, and it still ended up being a great experience for a lot of different people, right? Like that can still coexist with the idea of winning a national championship. And the idea, Arizona State last year, right, is a great example of that. Like that Arizona State team did not win a national championship, and it didn't really come close to winning a national championship. Go ask Cam Scadaboo if last year was a failure, right? Go ask him what he remembers of that season. I promise you that Cam Scadaboo remembers that being one of the best years of his life. And, and now if you go back and ask Patrick Mahomes last year what he thought about that NFL season, I promise you he doesn't remember it fondly. Go ask the Toronto Blue Jays. I promise the Blue Jays aren't like, man, we were right there. It's so close. It's not. And that's why college sports is great. And there's still a place for that. There is. Even if that means not having $90 million a year, even if that means not getting every player that you want, you can still pack your stadium. You can still pay players. You can still provide a great experience. And it still gives us something to do 12 weeks out of the year for those fan bases that want to go and support their team. I saw a 1-7 team play one of the ugliest games I've seen. Dude, that Washington State Oregon State game was awful.
It was terrible.
That was just a terrible.
I listened to some of it on the radio, and Mike Parker kept selling it as a defensive slugfest.
No, it was just
those
bad.
Two defenses are terrible. They're
bad.
terrible defenses.
Bad offense.
That just means the offenses were worse. That was such a bad game.
It was one of the worst games. I remember I went to the Apple Cup. Thank God I didn't go down to that game. I went to the Apple Cup the year that Washington went 0-12. And Washington State, I think, went 2-9 or 1-10 or 1-11. It was that. Yeah. I was at that game.
Yeah.
And me and my buddy, and I was like, "What are we doing here?" But for Washington State that won that game, dude, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And last night, you're right. The Oregon State shirtless swinging your woo. By the way, that's taken over. That one dude at Oregon State, that one dude in Corvallis, dude, he changed college. It's the new 6'7" in college sports. You see, you got all these shirtless dudes now waving. That one guy, I don't know who that guy is, but dude, that guy is amazing because he started something. And I saw those fans doing it. And I saw them run on the field, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, you're storming the field. You're 1-7 now, 1-8." But it meant something. It meant something to them.
2-6 or whatever.
Well, I think they were 1-7, so now I think they're 2-7.
2-7. There we go.
So that's that's great for those kids.
I guess, man. You're not selling me on it being great after that performance.
I don't care.
It's not great.
I don't care. It was great.
Nothing great about it.
I will go back again. I'm going to go back to my experiences.
Stop it.
We played UTEP one year. UTEP, the shittiest team of all time. Which, by the way, there was no reason to ever go to El Paso. That place is the worst thing in the world. And we went and played UTEP with like 3 weeks left in the season, and we didn't care, and whatever went down there. And UTEP beat us. There was like 9 people in the stands. Dude, there was no one there. And somehow we lost to UTEP. And I watched probably 500 people storm the field, and they tore down the goalposts. I stayed out on the field watching this. It was the smallest storming of the field you've ever seen. But somehow they got the goalposts down, carried them up over, because you can't get them out of the stadium. The Sun, where they play the Sun Bowl. I forget the name.
Yeah, you got to get them like over the.
They like
stands.
ants. They hauled that thing up to the top of the stadium, threw it out over the top of the stadium, managed to get it into downtown El Paso. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm being facetious when I say it was 500 people. There was probably 6,000 people at that game. I mean, nobody.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had won a game all year, maybe one. And I think we were an average team. We were whatever, 6-3 or something.
Yeah.
And their coach did not make them wear pads the rest of the year. They had like 2 or 3 remaining games. They didn't wear pads a single game the rest of the year. And they cut up
practice.
Practice. Yeah, they didn't make them practice.
Yeah.
They didn't make them wear pads the rest of it. I ended up having a friend that ended up playing on that El Paso team that I met later on, and he was telling me all this. They cut up those goalposts, and they're in all of these downtown El Paso bars. They cut up that goalpost. Like, that was their Super Bowl. That was Oregon State. And, it's UTEP. But for that one moment, it was great. They beat the bully of their conference. And I love that stuff. And there is still a place in college football for that. There is.
Yes.
It's and there always will be for whatever thing. So to any ACC team or Big 12 team or whoever ends up getting left behind, or when you're not, just sometimes you just have to recalibrate your expectations. And I keep going back to it. If we're being honest, those expectations should have always been there. But the fact that you were in that conference gave you that delusion that the highs could be so high, but it really wasn't. The reality is your expectation has always kind of been right where it's at. And I just think you need to recalibrate and rethink what a successful season means to you. And as long as there's still access to the college football playoff, and right now there is still better access to that than ever before. It's better.
Yeah, Oregon State's going to have a better shot at making the college football playoff in the new Pac-12 than they did ever before. Pac-12. Let's just be honest.
So
because they can win it.
As long as that stays there, that glimmer of hope is better than any glimmer that you had before.
It just doesn't come with the revenue. So you're further and further behind the big boys. But in terms of individual seasons, you might have better individual seasons. Yes. Arizona State had never had a season that relevant in the Pac-12 ever.
No, ever.
And then they're 1 year in the Big 12, which was a downgrade in terms of their recruiting prowess and everything, and they had a big year.
You're just going to have to play Moneyball. You've become the Oakland A's. And I get it. I know it sucks because you're going to lose guys to rivals and stuff, but it's just
Jason Giambi in the aggregate.
It's what you're going to have to do. It is literally the reality of our world.
Stop me if you've heard this before. A Mario Cristobal team had extreme hype, national championship hopes, top 10 season. They lose 2 games when they're favored. This week, just like the week they lost before, very vanilla game plan, too many penalties, poor game management, and they lose in overtime to SMU.
Yep.
We now have the playbook on Mario Cristobal. That's it. Recruits at a really high level. Yep. Game management is poor. In-game adjustments, poor. Lots of penalties. Teams aren't very disciplined. I mean, look at Oregon. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And just no ability to go outside of this like vanilla play calling, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is. What's the ceiling on this? And did Oregon get out at the right time on the Mario Cristobal stock? Because I think they left it at its highest. And I would say right now the playbook is out on Cristobal. He can be your like he could be the head coach at like a North Carolina next, and be the guy that recruits at a high enough level that it makes it worth it to deal with all that. You do not want Mario Cristobal at a team with national championship aspirations because he's going to lose every year. 1 or 2 or more games that he should win with a vanilla game script, poor game management, and too many penalties. That's who he is. And he did it again. And Miami fans on Twitter, by the way, were like, Oregon fans gave us a ton of S when we hired that guy. Yeah. And they said all these things. Dude, they were right. He's all of those. And Oregon fans said it, Miami, that's who he is. Yeah. What's the ceiling on a guy like that? And what do you do if you're Miami? Like, I think you almost have to move on, because your ceiling is 2-3 losses every year. And at Miami, that dog don't hunt.
Well, this goes back to he's James Franklin. He's James Franklin with a tan. I don't.
He's a better recruiter.
And this is kind of worse.
And he's a worse game manager.
Well, this is kind of where I'm going with this, right? Like James Franklin didn't get it done at Penn State, and they cut him off, right? They kneecapped him. He won 10 games every year. Mario Cristobal wins 10 games every year. So again, I go back to it. The guy can recruit. The guy's got He puts guys in the NFL. He's a charismatic guy. He's one of your own. It's not going anywhere. Not leaving for another job. So if you do move on from Mario Cristobal, which, by the way, everything you said is totally fair. I asked the question, where are you?
Where do you go that guarantees you that result every year? Even
every
if
year, because
you're annoyed that his ceiling's not the highest, his floor is pretty damn high.
His floor is pretty damn high. And if we go back and we look at the history of Miami coaches, if we want to go back to Jimmy Johnson and we want to go back to that run that they had, and Dennis Erickson, and winning national championships, the greatest that is Larry Coker, right? But I would also bring up Randy Shanahan, who was the Diaz, right?
Was it Randy Shannon?
Was it Randy Shannon or Randy Shanahan? Yeah, Shannon, right?
I think it's Shannon. Randy Shannon.
Yeah, that's how irrelevant he is, because we completely forgot about him.
You threw him in the lineage of the Shanahans, for God's sake.
Yeah, the Shanahans. No, but think about it. So we had Manny Diaz, right? Mark Richt, which he was fine. Al Golden, what? Yeah, Randy Shannon. So I mean, we got to go back. Butch Davis had it rolling there, and then he left. Mm-hmm. So we got to go back to 2000. So Larry Coker took over, won one national championship. By the way, Larry Coker, if you don't know, when Larry Coker got hired, they were going to hire Barry Alvarez. And the Miami players, that was like those Ed Reed guys, might be the greatest college football team of all time. They revolted and said, no, we're not doing that. Like, go hire that guy and he would just stay out of the way. And Larry Coker basically just said, do what you want. And the players ran that team. And then after that, everything else just kind of caved. So you got to go back 25 years till you had Miami rolling and you had an elite coach. So Mario Cristobal, for all of Mario's crap, and believe me, I ain't a huge Mario Cristobal guy. But since Mario Cristobal has got there, right, they win games. He took over a program that was kind of floundering a little bit. They recruited a top 10 level. Some of their best players are freshmen. Now, the problem is he committed to Carson Beck, and in your 2 losses, Carson Beck has 6 interceptions. So, if he found a way to recruit a better quarterback, if you took this Miami team and we flopped Carson Beck, who I've never understood the Carson Beck thing. Don't even get me started. You know how I feel about overhyped college football quarterbacks.
We're not even going to talk about Texas Vanderbilt today because I can't afford another tangent from you.
Yeah, I'll just spiral. But if you gave Mario Cristobal an elite quarterback on this Miami team, I think it's different. I do. Like,
how'd that work out last year?
Yeah, I know, right?
There's always something, man. That's the problem.
He
always finds a way to kneecap his own quarterback with very conservative play calling. So you can give him all kinds of stuff.
He did not have an elite quarterback last year. He didn't have an elite quarterback this year.
Cam Ward was the number 1 pick. What are we doing?
I know.
Stop it. Okay, God, I was about to lose it. Just because the guy's not doing great in the NFL doesn't mean he's not a good college quarterback.
I wanted to see your face.
Good,
so yes, it's one of those things where, do I love Cristobal? No. Be careful pulling the James Franklin thing.
Yeah.
If you told me that you can go out, because this is my thing with this,
especially in this cycle, right?
Especially in this cycle,
warning would be especially in this cycle.
Well, and see, it's going to cost you a ton of money. You go out and you fire James Franklin, and they wanted to hire Matt Rule, right, at Penn State. Guess what Matt Rule is? He's James Franklin with a worse hand, right? It's the same thing. He's 3 losses in Nebraska, but like, oh, we got to get Matt Rule. I don't love Mario Cristobal, but can Mario Cristobal build a program? Did he win a Rose Bowl at Oregon? Yes. Does he make Miami relevant? They were a game away from being in the college football playoff. Somehow they managed to shoot themselves in the foot. And you're right. I mean, it's funny. I was saying, give him a better quarterback because I don't think Carson Beck's very good. And to your point, he had Cam Ward last year, and yet they still found a way to lose down the stretch and cost themselves a shot at the college football playoff. So yes, that is maddening. Can coaches get better? Can talent get better? I'm a believer that if you were to place it as resources and you were recruiting at a top 10 level, by the way, Dan Lanning's never won squat at Oregon either. And yet we all worship at the altar of Dan Lanning. We talk about Dan Lanning like he's the greatest thing, in sliced bread. People call him a top 3 coach in college football. Well, okay. Well, why? What,
show me his big game that he was equal or lesser in talent where they outcoached who they were playing. Not
Well,
out talented easily and breezed, flat out game plan.
But I like Dan Lanning. And to me,
I do too, by the way.
if you recruited a top 10 level and you have resources and your players like you, stay the course, because you eventually can get over that hump. And yes, do I think that Cristobal is going to have a lot of these Mario Cristobal moments? Yes. But if you keep giving Mario Cristobal elite talent, and you do find more Cam Wards than you do Carson Becks and Malachi Tony and some of these guys they have, and Bain, I mean, they got dudes. and they're so young, right? And Beck moves on, and maybe you do find, eventually you do find a quarterback that can come in there and be the guy for you.
They picked him.
That's
part of the problem.
And that's part of the problem.
It's not like they got thrown Carson Beck. They went and got him.
I know. I'm just saying, eventually you break through. Texas, for all those years, like with Mac Brown, was also just kind of like, maybe, good.
That's true.
And they found Vince Young, right?
You're right.
And so sometimes that's what it takes, is you got to find that one.
They need to find their Arch Manning.
And look, Cam Ward was really, really good. He was. But Cam Ward wasn't also just this transcendent, just do everything player for you, though he was really stinking good.
His flaws in some ways were great for Mario, and in some ways were the worst thing.
Yeah.
Because his ability to just like freelance and go make a play kind of took away the conservative nature of Mario. The problem was when it snowballs on Mario, it also snowballs on Cam Ward sometimes. And so when it snowballed for both of them, where Mario's too conservative, doesn't know what to do, and Cam Ward is in one of those games where he's trying to play hero ball, and they fall behind, that's the worst case scenario for them getting upset. So in some ways he was the best, and in some ways he was the worst quarterback for Mario.
Kirby Smart had this at Georgia before he got over the hump, right? And all of a sudden, watch now with Kirby, if he doesn't win it this year, we'll be, what's wrong with Kirby Smart? Winning is hard.
Yeah.
And it is.
One guy does.
And when you've got a guy that recruits at a high level, Dan Lanning, and seems to have the program on a good trajectory, even if it ends in disappointment, I just think in this day and age, you're foolish for spending $100 million to go buy a guy out and bring another guy in that you have no idea if he's going to be successful or not. And this goes back to what I was saying, recalibrating expectations, right? And recalibrating what it means to be successful. Should Miami want better than this right here? Yes, they should. And the expectation should be, but having a year or two where you fall short by a game, right? Think the James Franklin thing. They were one play away from beating Oregon. One. And it goes wrong, and then the season kind of spirals, and 2 games later you're like, nope, everything's got to go. Like sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. Josh Allen, I think now is 5-1 against Patrick Mahomes in the regular season, something like that, and yet he's 0-4 in the postseason. So does Josh Allen suck? Did the Buffalo Bills suck? No, it hasn't ended the way they've wanted to end. You always have the label of you can't win the big one until you do. And college football, just our patience for it. And we always feel that the next guy coming in is going to be the guy to get you over the hump. And the idea of, I don't know who Miami would go get, but whether it's a guy who has
James Franklin.
Well, right, exactly, right. Let's say you fire that guy and you go get the next guy that hasn't won the big one, or you get the guy that's very unproven that came from a lower level. Like,
well, just hypothetically, say they hire Kirk Cignetti.
Yeah.
Right. That would be. I mean, he's got an extension. That's not my point. I'm just saying, literally. Let's play it out.
Yeah.
Are we sure that Kirk Cignetti works recruiting in South Florida? Are we 100% sure that he's an elite recruiter there, or is he I coach the hell out of the guys I get, and we'll see.
And he's a red ass, and he's older, and
we don't. Again, personality matters.
Yeah, sometimes a 64-year-old Midwestern dude with a flat top Johnny Unitas haircut that likes to yell and scream at his players. And I'm not trying to make this about like a cultural thing or whatever, but sometimes that guy going down into Coral Gables and going down into some of the areas where you recruit in Florida
doesn't work. Yeah.
Some of the really rural Black communities down there. Listen to some of the stories about like recruiting down in southern
that's what
Florida.
I mean. It's not easy. Mario Cristobal is a chameleon in that way. Yes. By the way, before we move on from Cristobal, my mom this summer had cancer. I mentioned it on social media. Mario Cristobal is the only coach to reach out to me and say, "Hey, I would like you to tell your mom that I said I hope she gets better. I hope she does okay." Yeah. So people can say whatever they want about Mario, and I make fun of his game planning and I make fun of all that stuff. He does go the extra mile in a lot of ways, and that's the kind of thing that makes him special. You'll hear stories of recruits who say, my mom got sick, and he checked in on my mom. That just did that with me. It was my mom's birthday, and he and his staff will look up every parent's birthday on Facebook and make sure they have a log of it. And you reach out to those parents on their birthdays and wish them happy birthday. Like, he is a meticulous guy in a lot of ways.
And that's, by the way, that's like a Dan Lanning thing. And that's why I believe in guys like that. I do. I think when you find a guy that's attention to detail, that builds a good program, that cares, that recruits and works his ass off and is tireless like that, even if the end of the year doesn't go the way you want it to go, to me, moving on from that guy is foolish. Iowa moving on from Kirk Ferentz is foolish. To me, Penn State moving on from James Franklin was foolish. Nebraska moving on from Frank Solich was foolish. There's way too many examples of that, as opposed to moving on and then having the next guy actually get you over the top, right? It that doesn't happen very often. And it just doesn't. I mean, yet we all want to believe that we're just the one right hire away. And by the way, it happens where we go hire the Kurt Signetti, Scott Frost, right? Scott Frost leads Central Florida to an undefeated championship, and he was running Oregon's offenses, and Nebraska's like, well, this isn't a no-brainer. If he can do this at Oregon, and then he goes down to South Florida, he'll come into Nebraska, and we'll be winning national championships. Scott Frost was effing terrible at Nebraska.
Terrible.
There just is, and again, Al Golden was at Temple, and we're like, oh, this is the guy. Like, look at what
if he can win at Temple.
He can win at Temple. Well, he didn't. And so when you have a proven winner, and he wins 10 games every year, and you're in the conversation for the college football playoff every year, is it fair to tell Mario, hey, you got to find, and you're right, with Cam Ward, they did open up the offense. Is it fair to tell him, hey man, you got to change some of this stuff, right? You have to change the way we need you to expand this. It's okay to tell Dan Lanning, you got to find a new defensive coordinator, though I think the defense has been pretty good this year. Stuff like that. Sure. But running a guy out that consistently wins. Now, if you do this over 4 or 5 years, if Dabo has another 4-year stretch where, by the way, Dabo was in the college football playoff last year and won the ACC. And Clemson's still ready to run him out of town.
He's won national championships.
Yes, multiple. He's played for 4 national championships, won 2, played in the SEC title or played in the ACC title game, won it, got into the college football playoff. People think
he's a total bum.
Yeah, and we're talking about him like he's like, the worst thing in the world, and you're like, man. And I'm not a Dabo guy. That guy drives me nuts.
And this year has been especially that way because I think the James Franklin thing is unforgivable. That's a dude. Penn State was relevant every year. I think they were a tier below, those top teams every year, but they were every year in the tier right below the top teams every single year. That's hard to do. And they churned out a ton of prospects.
Yep.
Like, their ability to get guys ready for the NFL draft is literally legendary. Some of those dudes have put up legendary numbers. Saquon Barkley, Abdul Carter. They have like 3 or 4 of the biggest freaks of the last 15 years from their roster. They just do. So he was doing a lot of things right. I think we are too quick. The hot seat was nice and cool for Mario Cristobal until this week. And now I think it gets turned up very quickly. We're on medium heat on this one. Interesting little tidbit I saw this week as people are starting to make predictions for the college football playoff. It is becoming a trendy pick for Oregon to be picked as the team that does not make the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Bruce Feldman picked Oregon not to, and Bud Elliott from CBS Sports. Both of those guys, I would say, by the way, particularly Bruce Feldman, are not really hot take guys. Like, they're not the Stephen A. Smiths of college football. No. If they put out a bracket, I put them in like us. They're going to really say what they think, even if it goes against the grain. It's really what they think, and they're going to say it. There is concern about this Oregon team at Iowa. Yeah. There is concern about this Oregon team at Washington, and there is concern about Oregon stopping USC. Now, I don't know how I feel about the USC game. I think Oregon kind of just rolls in that one. I guess I do know how I feel. I think they win. I do understand the argument. I'm not saying I'm there yet. I understand the argument that Iowa is going to be tough for Oregon. Because if you're just comparing – Iowa is like the adult version of Wisconsin.
Yes.
who is like a little kid version where it's like, we're pretty good in the trenches and we grind you out. And Iowa's like, yeah, we're supercharged in the trenches and we will grind you out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you only put up 21 points against Wisconsin, we'd like to show you something.
Yeah.
If you have a hard time with Indiana's defense, we'd like to show you something. Iowa's good. Are you thinking this is smoke and you got to pick somebody, or do you to miss and that's the fun pick? Or do you think there's really something here where maybe Oregon has some warts that people who really know are talking about and seeing? Because again, I want to highlight Bruce Feldman picked Oregon to miss the playoffs at the beginning of the year too.
Sure.
And said Oregon is closer to a 3-loss team than they are an undefeated team.
Yeah.
That same sentiment is something I shared in my preseason pick. And I'm kind of on the fence with that, to be honest.
Yeah. Do I think there's something there? Yeah, I do. Look, the best way I'll say it. Oregon's better than Iowa. Oregon's better than Washington. Oregon is better than USC.
Yep.
Just are.
That's fair.
Better. That's a better football team. Better talent. 2 of those games are on the road. Tough places to go play. Expectations. And college football is weird, right? We see it every week. We just do. We see teams lose games that have no business losing. We just talked about Miami. Miami lost 2 games. Shouldn't have lost. I always call them the witches of November, man. They come every single year. They come for somebody. And someone jumps up and bites someone that they have no business losing to. Last year, Wisconsin almost did that, right?
Mm-hmm. And to Lanning's credit, Oregon has never been that team.
No.
They've never lost to somebody you went into it saying, they should pretty easily win this game.
But they will.
Someday.
They just will. They will. I mean, it happens to everybody. So when I look at Oregon, I say there's warts. There's warts there, but everyone has warts, with the exception of maybe Ohio State. But even Ohio State's run game isn't great. I think they finally had like a 50-yard run. The Bo Jackson kid ripped one off. That was like their longest run of the country. So, and they're not great in the red zone running the ball either. So even Ohio State, which at this point is the best team in the country, they just are. Even they have warts, and their run game is kind of iffy. It's not great. But everything else about them is phenomenal. Oregon has some warts. And when you have warts, you are capable of shooting yourself in the foot, and you're still dealing with 19, 20-year-old kids. It's a very, very young football team. And so going on the road and playing a very tough Iowa team that gave Indiana all they could handle. Again, I'd point out 2.5 minutes left, tie ball game. Iowa was kicking a field goal to potentially win that game and didn't go their way. Indiana scored a touchdown, and then but 2 minutes left. It was like 2:40 left in that game. It was a tie game. And they had the ball. Iowa is capable of beating you. They just are. USC is capable of beating you, and Washington is capable of beating you. I don't believe Minnesota is, especially at home. That's not going to happen. So do I think one of those things is going to happen? No, I don't. Would it shock me in any way? And if one of those teams is going to beat you, I think it's probably Iowa. I think if you want to beat Oregon, I think playing them in a knockdown, drag it out game is probably the way to do it. And USC,
Penn State, yes. Penn State almost did it.
Yes,
Penn State's not as good as Iowa, I don't think.
USC doesn't have what it takes to drag you into that sort of game. I don't believe. Washington, maybe. I think they would be more in the inclined. They just have some dynamic playmakers, and if they get hot, their offense when it's cooking. But Iowa has the look. So yes, do I think there's something there? If I'm looking at my worry meter. Even the last game of the year, if you're playing for all the marbles against Washington, a dreaded rival, I think the biggest scare for me is Iowa. Because I think Iowa has the ability to play a 8-possession game. And if they play an 8-possession game and you get a fumble, you get a turnover, and their defense can flat out just stop you, and I believe their defense can stop you because we've seen lesser defenses stop Oregon this year. And I don't know what the weather is going to be like, but I'm sure it's not going to be, it's not going to be 70 and sunny out there, and it's going to be a hostile environment. Yeah, this one scares me a little bit. If I'm an Oregon fan. Now, there lies the question: if they lose this game or lose another one down the road, and it's a 2-loss team, I don't believe Oregon's going to lose 2 more. If they lose 3, they're out. If they lose 2, I think they're in.
They're out. Not if you lose your last game to Washington and you miss the call and you miss the Big Ten title game. They'll be out. Because Washington will take the spot.
Well, and maybe if you do that, but if you lose to Iowa and then you win your next 3, look, 10-2 to me more than likely still gets you in. But I think that's the debate: is if they lose somewhere down the road, whether it's this one or another one, does a 2-loss Oregon team without a real marquee win, Does that do any? Is that enough to get you in?
It probably is, but it depends on which where your
teams?
second loss comes from. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think this game against Iowa is a little spooky. The one thing that gives you, well, two things. One, Oregon has never lost this game. Like you mentioned under Dan Lanning, they have not lost these games. And two, just from a talent standpoint, Oregon is significantly better than Iowa. They just are.
Particularly in the skill positions.
Particularly in the skill positions, they are just better. But Iowa's O-line is really good
in the country.
And their defense is nasty. And I don't think they're going to be scared of Oregon. I don't. I think they're going to look at what Penn State did. I think they're going to look at what
Indiana and Wisconsin
both did to them. And I think you're going to get some of that simulated pressure. I think you're going to attack some of the weak spots on the offensive line. I think you're going to throw some different looks at Dante Moore. And I believe that they think that they can contain Oregon's run game. So, you're not going to scare them. Like the defensive coordinator who's been there 1,000 years with Kirk Ferentz. He kind of had one of those little. He was being very complimentary of the Oregon offense. He was. If you listen to the whole clip, he was actually being very complimentary. And I don't know if he did this on purpose or whatever, but he did say at the end of it, he said their offense is well funded, if I can say
their
that.
roster is well funded.
Yeah. Well, he said their offense, right?
Oh, offense. That was just offense.
Okay, so are you? Is that more of like when you look at it, he's just saying, hey, it's a great, offensive unit. Is he bringing up an NIL fact? Who knows?
Yes, but Dan Lanning's going to turn that into.
But here's the thing:
some sort of he called your mother,
and that's fine.
whatever.
And I saw Oregon fans like, "Oh, you did it again, dude." Iowa doesn't give two shits. No. This isn't Oklahoma State. Nope. It's one thing when you poke the bully. And you don't have the ability to fight him. I'm not going to walk up to Brock Lesnar and call him a what. They're just no. But just walking up to someone that you're not scared of, that that you can play with, Iowa is not going to be intimidated.
No.
So when he said that, and Oregon fans like, oh, that is going to have no bearing on this game whatsoever.
Oregon fan has an inflated sense of what Dan Lanning. I love Dan Lanning. They have an inflated sense of what Dan Lanning brings to the table. Dan Lanning is not some overwhelming game plan guy. There's a reason when you go to college football 26 or whatever, and you're picking what kind of coach you'd be, Dan Lanning is the picture of recruiter. That's what it is. If you pick recruiter, it's Dan Lanning. He's a great recruiter. He's a great motivator. I think he's a really good face of a program, and he knows how to get guys ready for the NFL. He does. There's a lot of good things. He's not some mastermind that if you give him this little sliver, he's going to now use it to out gameplay. It doesn't have an effect on the game plan. It might get the kids extra juiced, but when you're playing Oklahoma State, that matters in the third and fourth quarter when you're already up 35. Let's not take our foot off their neck.
Not against Iowa.
But it doesn't matter in a game that's supposed to be a 7-point game.
Dude, when you go into a boxing match, you watch an MMA contest, right? You're watching the UFC, and you get some dude that's talking, Conor McGregor's in there talking shit to Khabib, and okay. You can say all you want about my mom. You can say all this and that. I'm still going to punch you in the face.
We'll sort it out in the octagon.
We'll sort it out. What happens when I pick you up and I dump you on your head? Now I'm on top of you. Like all that anger and aggression. It just doesn't mean anything. And it's fun for message boards, and it's fun for fans to be like, "Oh, Iowa's in for it," and maybe they are. Oregon's better. But this idea that somehow Iowa is shaking in their shiver shorts because of what Mike Gundy said. Mike Gundy should have been saying because he knew, that's one of those. Lanning could have scored 40 or he could have scored 69. And saying that, they're going to score 69. This is not going to have a bearing on what Oregon can do against Iowa. This is just a big boy football game, and you're going to play some Big Ten ball. Like you're going to catch a case of the Big Ten-itis. I said that when they played Wisconsin. This is not going to be a high-scoring affair, I don't think. This is going to be a 7 or 8 possession game. Iowa does not let you really get big plays on them. One of the reasons why Iowa doesn't give up a lot of points, even when you score on them, it tends to be an 8-minute drive. And that's kind of one of the things that Iowa wants. If you're going to score on them, take 9 minutes.
Go ahead and grind. We'll grind.
We gave one up. That's fine. But now we're going to go down, and we're going to play a 7-minute drive. And now I've gone through a quarter, and we've had 2 possessions, and that's the game we want to play.
Right.
So I just think
it's hard to beat an Iowa team 55-7.
Yes.
You can dominate them and win 28-10.
And I think that's going to be what you're in for. And when you play close slog games like Oregon Stanford back in the day, that was always their recipe. When you played Chip Kelly teams, if Chip Kelly got 15 possessions, he beat you. I think it was like if he got 12 or less, he was basically a 500 football coach. There was a number in there. It was like 12, maybe 11.
Whatever it was. Yeah.
Whatever it was. And that's going to be Iowa. They are going to want this to be a 10 or less possession game, because when you play those tend to be weird, wonky games. And if you can drag Oregon into deep water at the end of a football game, weird stuff happens.
Coin flip.
Freshman fumble, quarterbacks throw interceptions, wind blows a field goal, you get a pump blocked or whatever. Stuff happens. So I'm excited. This is going to be my biggest watch outside of Oregon Washington, which from the rivalry standpoint. But I think this has the potential to be the best or maybe most dangerous game that Oregon has left on their schedule. Because remember, Iowa is 2 possessions away from being undefeated. They lost by 3 points to a Iowa State team that, again, that was just Iowa being Iowa. Their offense, I don't know what that. I watched that game earlier in the year. I don't know how they lost that. And then, the field goal against Indiana that didn't go their way, and then, gave up the late touchdown. So, if one of those games had gone the other way, we're talking about Iowa in a completely different light than we are right now.
Washington's ranked. Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, all very winnable.
Yep.
Setting the table potentially should be. I mean, Wisconsin is not terrible, but you should win that game. You should win that game. They should be 9-2 when they play Oregon. Now, whether Oregon's 10-1 at that point or 9-2, we don't know yet. But it does feel like Washington's going to be 9-2. And it does also feel like if Oregon is 9-2, that Oregon's 9-2 and Washington's 9-2 would not be created equal. In other words, people would still say Oregon's probably the better team.
They are,
but I think so too. But still, again, and it's a weird thing, and we don't have to go on it very long because not a lot has changed except now they're ranked.
Yeah,
it still feels like this season for Washington is like, hey, we're arriving. We've got pieces. We're exciting. Our line's coming together. Our defense is playing probably a tier and a half better than we could have even anticipated. Like they keep them in games. Everything's going well. And I don't get the buzz or the electricity. Hell, Bud Elliott picked them to make the college football playoff as the 10 seed. So basically beating Oregon head to head to get in. And again, if you are, and Bruce Feldman said the same thing, he has them losing potentially to Iowa and Washington and being out. If Washington does that, and again, I'll give them these 3. I'm not giving them the Oregon game, just hypothetical. If they beat Oregon, they're in the college football playoff. If they run the table and beat Oregon, they're in the college football playoff. No one could have seen this coming. And anybody who predicted it in the preseason is a total jackwagon.
Bunch of morons. No, that's, again, if you listen to this.
They are who we thought they were.
Yeah. I don't think Washington is elite, but they got a little something, man.
Right. They've got some playmakers, and no matter who they play, and this is what I've said for Washington all year, no matter who they play, they have some alpha pieces that it doesn't matter how good your team is. They have some guys that if it's one-on-one, they're going to have an advantage. Denzel Boston, Jonah Coleman, Damon Williams, they are difficult to deal with. And in the right situations, they can make plays. And it turns out the defense is a little better than we thought. So
I think that's the thing.
Here's Washington, and seemingly not even the people in Seattle are excited. It's like a Mariners loss hangover or something. But I don't get the buzz from Seattle.
It's weird because at times it just doesn't look great, right? It doesn't.
It mostly doesn't look great right
now. Yeah, it's one of those where you're kind of watching like a horror movie. You kind of watching between your fingers there.
And don't watch them at all in the first half. Just wait till the second half. They figure it out later.
It's one of those that if they end up figuring it out and they play the way they're capable of, their best is really good.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we don't see their best all the time.
It does help that the left side of their line is back.
Yes,
part of the problem, part of the unevenness of their play for that 3-4 game stretch,
they were
missing Carver Willis and their freshman
John Mills. They don't have the depth to withstand injuries. They need all their pieces, and so we'll see what happens over the next month. And again, don't crap the bed if you're Washington. Give us what we all want. Give us that 9-2 Washington team welcoming whatever version of Oregon is coming up there. Give us that game. We deserve it. I think that's the one that everyone wants. It's the most hated rivalry on the West Coast. Give us that game. Don't crap the bed. You're playing 3 teams you have no business losing to, and then let the chips fall where they may. But I think that's the thing where we say that, like with Oregon, you kind of trust Dan Lanning to not lose these games. You don't trust fish in these. You just don't because it's just
he did it last year.
We see a half against Colorado State, we see a half against Maryland, we see a half against Rutgers, where it just
they lost to Washington State last year.
Yeah, you just don't. There's just too many of those. Like, what is happening there? But you're right. Let's see. You win these next two if you're Washington, and then I think going into that last game, is it Purdue or UCLA that they play before Washington?
UCLA before Oregon.
UCLA. So if we go into UCLA week and they've won their next two games, at that point they're probably 17th, 15th in the country.
They're sitting right there.
Yeah. And they're sitting right there, and you're like, dude, we beat UCLA, and maybe a couple of our losses happen. Now I think it'll start to get real. It doesn't feel real right now.
Right.
I think for Washington fan, it seems a little bit like a fantasy, but as it gets closer, if you keep stacking wins, the reality will start to sink in. But it's not yet. The reality has not fully set in for Washington that this could be something really good.
So their biggest game left is Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
They should easily beat Purdue, and UCLA kind of the bloom is coming off.
By the way, I told you that shine
you said
was
that
coming off against Indiana, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I think we said it could be like 56-10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Their toughest game before Oregon, obviously Oregon's tougher. Oregon fans jail out. And they're favored by 11.5 against Wisconsin. That's what I'm saying is like, it's very, very doable. Now they could crap the bed, but if you're a double-digit favorite and they should be in each of their next 3 games, they should have 2 losses playing Oregon. So it's going to be fascinating to watch them. This has been a really fun year to follow Washington because I think we believed really early. And we both took a lot of S for it throughout the year.
I still do.
I got DMs during games they were behind. Nice call, idiot. And then it's like, they ended up coming back and winning.
I got one.
Anyway,
I got one last week. I had this
Washington.
exact kind of conversation on my show last week where I was like, hey, this is kind of falling in line. And I still got people like, Washington's ass. I'm like,
they're not. Guys, they're safely not.
No one here is saying that they're winning a national championship, but they're not ass. I know that. That's, and if they are ass, it's like Taylor Swift ass. It's not Megan Thee Stallion ass. It's like little ass. Like
barely ass.
Barely ass. They have flashes of ass sometime, but yeah, Washington's a good team.
We're not supposed to say flashes of ass.
No, that's true. Sorry about that. A glimpse.
I don't want to get too far off track, but I think there's the whole like Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and people talk about like the upgrade. And then you look at Kayla Nicole and you're like, well, but Taylor Swift is a billionaire. Like, let's give her that. Because I think you and I both would tend to sway.
Look, she's the most famous woman in the world. And
highly successful and clearly intelligent. And maybe
she seems very sweet and she likes cats. So just back off Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce has had a lot of different variation. If you settle on Taylor Swift again,
probably not an ass. Probably not an ass, man.
No, you're marrying the most famous woman in the world. Is worth $1 billion in bank account. Seems like a sweet person. I'll go ahead and shut up over here.
Yeah, I'm not. No one's calling that a downgrade. It's just if we're talking just purely, never mind. It doesn't. It's irrelevant. Oregon State won a game this weekend.
Hey, go Beavs.
That's nice. Yeah. I've heard nothing. Literally zero. And that could be me, by the way. I'm not connected, especially now that Bray's gone and that staff is on the edge of their seat. I am more out with Oregon State than I've ever been in terms of inside information. Yeah. But I'm not hearing anything on a coaching search.
No,
and my question to you is this. Are they waiting until the end of the year to interview candidates? Or, and it could be both, by the way, or is this a scenario where there are so many open jobs and they belong where they belong in the pecking order, like they're not in the top 5, that some of the candidates they potentially would want to go after are also potentially interviewing for like a UCLA? Where do you put the reason for some of this stuff on? Are they being that tight-lipped and they've actually made progress, or do you think they're waiting till the season's over to figure out what they're going to do?
My guess is that obviously they're not waiting around. They are talking to everyone and anyone right now. But my guess is they are probably at this point calling agents. What's your interest level? I don't know how competitive Oregon State is, obviously, against the bigger jobs. But you mentioned UCLA. You maybe something like a Virginia Tech. Maybe it's something like that. So
you might have a guy who like gets an interview for one of those jobs that potentially you really actually want for your job. And maybe he finishes third or fourth, but he may not tell you yes until he's had a chance to interview for something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do wonder if some of that's going on.
I think for certain though that there's no way they're just sitting around right now with twiddling their thumbs waiting for people. I got to believe that they are out pounding the pavement and talking to a wide range of candidates. And if we get to the end of the year and now we're in with a week or two left in the season and you don't have names that are starting to whisper, now I would get concerned. Okay. But my guess is that, if you're talking to Montana State coaches, things like that, I mean, those guys are in the middle of their seasons. They're maybe potentially national championships type stuff. And I'm guessing that would merely be right now, are you interested? Is it something that we would like to have discussions down the road? So I'm not worried. But a month from now, if we're not hearing names, then I think it's time to get concerned, because I don't have a lot of faith in Oregon State right now. I don't have a lot of faith in Scott Barnes. I think they should have gone the way of LSU and just realized that fan base won't tolerate this and it's time for a fresh start. But Scott Barnes also isn't an idiot, right? He's done this before. This isn't like a completely like new foreign concept to them. So they'll be professionals about it. And I wouldn't be overly concerned right now if I was an Oregon State fan.
I did find it funny. They fired Brent Blaylock. They hired a celebrity, an alumni celebrity committee that doesn't have any connection to college football circles. So that means nothing except, hey, someone else is in charge, so don't blame me.
All you're trying to do at that point is you're trying to stave off the pitchforks. That's all.
Right. And they fired Blaylock, I mentioned. They're getting rid of the Blueprint Sports deal, which whether they started out defending it. By the way, they took them 48 hours to say anything. And then they were like, oh, the contract's not exactly how it works in real life. Yeah. I've tended to find that there are two versions of a story when it comes to any type of contract or anything. And then you can just read the language in the contract. And whatever it says in the contract is generally how things go. There isn't a contract where you go, yeah, but technically we don't pay this part. That's not how it works. No. It's just not. No. The contract is the contract. So they tried to kind of say, it's not that bad. It turned out I think they got scammed. They got scammed. They clearly got scammed. I first saw those and thought it was honestly fake. I didn't believe the contract was real. All of that seems to have happened under Scott Barnes' watch, yet now the problems are solved because he got rid of whatever.
I got rid of everybody that was the problem. Yeah, well.
Who hired all those problems?
Who hired all let's not talk about it.
I would give Barnes a very short leash if I'm the president, and probably I would get rid of Barnes too. He got absolutely blindsided somehow on realignment when you and I were talking about it a year in advance that eventually this is going to fall apart. The day the Pac-12 dissolved, there were still sources with Oregon State and Washington State saying it's going to stay together.
Oh, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
They didn't know. They were just in the dark. I mean, clueless. So that alone, he gave himself a raise, all of that. I would get rid of him. If you don't, I think you have an honest conversation that listen, this committee is not going to save you. We're not doing an alumni committee that saves you. This is it. You hit a home run hire here. We'll give you a little more time. Your leash is this long right now. Yeah. You hire a home run coach. We'll give you a chance to make the next hire in a different sport. There's a lawsuit pending right now too. Beyond that, I just see no way that he's the long-term answer. You've gone nowhere but down in 2 or 3 years, and it's been predictably down. The hire of Trent Bray, I cannot hammer home enough. When he was hired, and you and I have both talked about this, you reach out anytime anybody's hired. When Mario's hired, I reach out and try to figure out what people think of the guy. To a man, people were anywhere from nice guy to not my favorite person, but to a man, not a head football coach.
Nope.
Not a good hire. This will not work. This will not work 100%. So did Barnes not do any research at all? Did he ignore everyone in his circle?
They were just trying to do that. And this is why they just were trying to hold on to hey, Jonathan Smith had something good happening, and now everything is going to crap.
Let's take the somewhat unpopular defensive coordinator that people don't like and probably won't get the kids to rally around. Oh, crap, our whole team fell apart. Oh, that's exactly what everyone outside of the program thought was going to happen.
It was the most short-sighted thing in the world. It was just one of those, trying to save face. You tried to win the press conference. Oh, he's a Beaver and he wants to be here. Look at us. Good move. As opposed to doing, the smart thing, which would have been actually hiring a search.
They could have had
firm.
Cignetti at one point, or at least interviewed him.
Yeah, there you
for
go.
real.
Yeah.
Apparently he tried. I mean, there's a rumor that he was up for an interview and they said no.
Whoops. I think there's a lot of teams right now that are probably saying whoops.
Yeah, but again, too, though, you can't really blame them. You can't say, well, you didn't hire Cignetti. Shame on you. It's like, dude, people didn't know Cignetti was Cignetti, or 15 other schools would have hired him.
That's why he said, Google me, bitch.
But that's
all I do is win.
But that's also why I think it makes sense to go hire that lower level coach that's had success, because they are a good coach. They're a grinder. They do it with limited resources. Any of this sounding familiar, Oregon State? It checks boxes, and you go get a guy that can at least do those things, and then it becomes regional fit. It becomes recruiting, but you're not questioning whether the dude knows how to coach. You got that box checked. You
have a lot of really elite programs at the lower level that are on the western side of the United States.
Really good,
right?
Montana State,
the Dakotas,
Washington, North Dakota. Yeah.
Go find one of them and take a crack at it. See what happens. And if you lose there, at least you swung for someone that has huge upside, as opposed to, oh well, I don't know, he's kind of okay and he's a stabilizing force. I've always said I don't know why someone won't call Nick Rolovich. I don't. The COVID stuff has blown over. The opinion on that stuff has shifted with the mandates and the vaccine and all that. I don't think that's an issue anymore for teams. I thought he was a great fit at Washington State. I think he'd be a great fit at Corvallis. He runs a fun, exciting offense. He's a younger guy. I don't know why.
Wouldn't be my first call, but he'd get a call.
I don't know why at least you're not kicking the tires on someone like that. And maybe there's some stuff behind the scenes where maybe he is a red ass and people don't want to deal with him. But, along those lines, I just think there's some candidates out west that make a lot more sense than trying to go back to Bronco Mendenhall, or even trying to rehire Jonathan Smith and doing the whole Mike Riley thing. Move past. Be better than what you've been, and reset expectations.
I think that's a perfect place to end it. We got to preview this week's games. We'll do that a little later in the week. We're sorry for only one episode. I have been under the weather and continue to be under the weather, trying to figure out what exactly is going on with me. But we're going to figure this out here soon. So thank you for being patient with us. Subscribe, leave comments,
all those fun
questions, all the buttons, all the things, every of the thing. Thank you very much, Suke. Appreciate you. And we should probably plug every once in a while your show, 3 to 7 prime time on 105.1.
I've only been there for like 23 years. So
it would be weird if people found this show before finding your show on the Fan, considering that's been going on forever. But you do that. I do a recruiting show Thursday night, 7 to 8 p.m. on, again, 105.1 The Fan. It's right after on Thursday nights, your show, again, every day, Monday through Friday, 3 to 7, with one Isaac Robb, who is also a radio legend in the Portland area.
Yep. And when he's gone, we fill in and you jump over and we do this on my show. So we've been doing stuff together for a long time. So hopefully people like it. And this is way more sportsy and football-y than what I do on my show. So if you like this side of it and you like the football stuff, just keep clicking, liking. And as long as you guys keep liking it and, we kind of grow this thing, we'll keep doing it.
Did you rank Halloween candy?
We always talk Halloween candy.
Where did you land this year? What's the candy?
Oh, I mean, we've been doing this for 20 years. I think we've ranked, Halloween candy.
What's yours? What's your go-to?
The go-to to me is the 100-gram bar.
Oh, me too. And fast break bars.
Yeah, the 100-gram bar
Those are my two favorites.
Is criminally underrated, and it's starting to gain acceptance. The gold standard of Halloween candy is the Snickers. I know they're just the Beatles. It may not be for everybody, but it's widely accepted, the influence. The Snickers bar is elite. The Reese's peanut butter cup. I mean, what the get out of here with the Milky Way bull crap, all that stuff. It's a lesser candy. You may like Milky Ways, but it's not as popular. But yeah, to me, if I'm searching through, you give me the 100-gram bar, maybe some peanut M&Ms. I think those are elite as well. So just don't give me some weird bastard, dark chocolate, weird candy corn crap. You know what's good. You know what's good. Some
No
Skittles, some
Twizzlers.
Starburst.
No
Hey,
Twizzlers.
the
Too
Twizzler out of
waxy.
here.
It's gross.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Perfect. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.